Like, that's a big thing about my podcast. Like, these movies we don't do a movie unless it has won an Academy Award. And whether or not they deserve to win those Academy Awards, people have recognized this movie as excellent. That doesn't mean it doesn't have flaws.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I think that's something that I really like about my podcast, that we point out, okay, yes, this and this is great about this movie, and it can be great, and we can celebrate it for this, but don't put it on a pedestal and think it above everything else. Like, don't put it above maybe this indie movie that is also really good at this, and this, but didn't win an Academy Award. Like, movies should be for everyone. There shouldn't be this prestige around them. And I mean, I have my own opinions about the legitimacy of the Academy and like the fact that you can legally bribe them and stuff, and that's okay, and that's just a practice, and I don't think an award show can be considered legitimate that way, but you know, that's another thing we can get into.
Listen to the Vibes.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have here Miss Brittney McHugh. I hope I said that correctly.
You did, yeah.
Because I have a tendency to butcher everyone's names. And
same. And it's bad on my podcast.
What's bad is when you do it live. At least,
yeah.
If I record, I can go back and kind of fix it. But, you know, it is what it is. So you're like into TV and movies and comedy and all this good stuff.
I'm into a ton of stuff. Yeah. So I'm an actor, an improviser, kind of a writer. I mean, I wrote like one play that was produced at my school, but I take pride in that. And I'm also a podcaster. I have my own podcast called The Academy Arguments, where me and my co-host, we watch Academy Award winning movies. He tells you why they're great. I tell you why they're terrible, and we have a bunch of fun. But yeah, I also have like a ton of interest in the entertainment industry and about a lot of obscure things too. Like, I get into a lot of fandoms and some things that aren't even fandoms. Like, I know a lot of really weird history facts.
Oh, I love history now.
Oh my gosh. Like, okay, this is my favorite one. And I kid you not, I have this on my dating app. This is legit on my dating app because I think it's an interesting fact. And one of the prompts was like, what's an interesting fact you like? So Paul Revere, he never said the British are coming.
Okay.
Like, everyone knows Paul Revere for saying the British are coming, but he didn't say that because everyone living in the colonies at the time was British. So saying the British are coming doesn't actually make any sense. So what he said was the regulars are coming.
The regulars. I knew he didn't say the British were coming, but I didn't know what he said. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he also didn't like scream it out loud. It was a covert mission. He like said it secretly to a few people. He did ride, but like,
excuse me, hey, the regulars are coming.
Don't spread it around to any of the British, except, most of us are British. So maybe spread it around to a couple of British who we know are on our side.
And I'm like you. I love all those little obscure things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because, so many things we've been told in school and this, that, and the other. And you're like, okay, well, let's get down to what it really was.
Yeah. Oh, I had the best, history teacher when I was in high school. He would constantly challenge us to be like, okay, so this is what you've been learning your whole life. Now think a little deeper into this, about who was teaching you this, about why they might be saying this, because we all know like history was written by the victors. So, and he would really challenge us to try and see both sides of the argument. I mean, not on some things, like slavery is bad no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, he was just such a good teacher. He always like challenged us on that, and he always got super excited about history, which made me really excited about it. He knew a ton about Theodore Roosevelt. Like, he knew a ton of obscure facts. That guy was weird, like a good weird, but weird. Yeah, and that just kind of like further, I always had a love of history. Like, my mom used to get me, do you know what those American Girl dolls are?
Yes.
Ever heard of them? Yeah, so my mom used to get me those. Those were like all the rage when I was growing up. But she would only get me the historical dolls. She wouldn't get me like the look-alike dolls or the dolls of the years. There had to be some learning element to it. So I would get all these historical dolls and they'd come with books and I'd read their books, and I just got super into historical fiction at such a young age, and that just kind of sparked this love of history I've had through the years. And I just, now that I'm older, I really like going into and being like, okay, why do we all believe this one fact about history? Like, why do we all believe Napoleon was short? He was like taller than me. And I actually do know why. It was British propaganda, but
Okay.
it's just so interesting. I love learning that stuff. It's so fun. I love learning. I love being disproven, I guess, about all the stuff I knew.
You know, one of the things I was always curious about is why do the English ride on the left-hand side of the road while we drive on the right-hand side of the road? And it had to do with military and how they rode on horses, because everybody was so used to fighting on the, you know, with their right hand. They learned how to fight the opposite way to be more like tactical. And so that's how they started driving on the other side of the road.
Really?
Yeah, and then neat. Well, actually,
Yeah.
we ride on. Yeah, you know what I mean. They ride on the wrong side of the road.
Someone rides on a side of the road that isn't the same. No, I never knew that. I'm glad I know that now. I'm gonna share that fact.
And one of the other things I thought was funny, and I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but my history teacher was telling us about Kennedy and how he had made his speech, and he was in Berlin and he was trying to speak German, and instead of saying he was proud to be in Berlin or whatever, he actually said he was proud to be a jelly donut. So
I've heard of that. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard of that though.
hey, you know, if not, at least it makes for a cool story at a party,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've actually been to the Kennedy Museum in Dallas.
Really?
Yeah, my family took a road trip around Texas and we stopped at Dallas for a day, and we were all like, oh, we got to see the Kennedy Museum. Like, why else are we in Dallas? No. There were other reasons we were in Dallas. But we did want to see it, and I really like those places. My mom's really into museums whenever we go on vacation. Probably another reason why I'm super into history. The best one I've been to, though, was the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis,
Oh, okay.
which is actually in the motel that Martin Luther King got shot in, that they have since converted into a larger museum.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they had like just recently redesigned it, and we showed up and there was a giant line of people waiting to get in, and we're like, oh, what's going on? And they're like, well, it's not open to the public yet because they went through this huge redevelopment process in the museum. They're just opening it for today for a sneak preview. And we got to go in for the sneak preview, and it was like the most moving museum I've ever been in my life. It was also like they had a bunch of tech upgrades, so they incorporated a lot of computers and stuff, and so you could really get into what it was like back there. And I was so moved. I think I started crying while I was there. It's just beautiful, really moving. I highly recommend it if you're ever in Memphis.
Oh,
Like, I think it's a must-see.
I haven't been to Tennessee in a few years, but you know, I would love to do that because Martin Luther King. I mean, people should take more advice from what he used to say back in the day, but well, that's another topic. But I'm exactly on the same page as you. I would love to go see that.
It was so moving. Like, I mean, they start all the way back into like slavery and bringing African Americans, taking them from their home and forcing them into slavery over here. And then they just continue with it through the years and years. And you see this whole movement start to grow. And then you see like so many of the horrors. There are a couple of things in that museum that were like graphic, but in a way that I think is important to witness. Yeah, I started crying. Like, it was so powerful.
They should emphasize that, like with the Irish and the Japanese that were treated so badly over here as well.
Oh yeah, I don't I don't know of any museums about the Japanese internment camp. That was another thing my wonderful history teacher really like pushed on us about the Japanese internment camp, and he was like, okay, like let's look at some parallels here. Was America doing the right things? We were fighting people who were doing something that was kind of similar in Germany. Like, should we be putting people in cages just because of their race, because we're afraid of them? And oh gosh, he was such a good teacher. He really wanted to like challenge this. I feel like this is turning into a history podcast. I can recommend several history podcasts if you are interested.
Hey, I do paranormal investigations as well, and my favorite part of it is doing the research and learning the history of places. And the reason why I knew about the Japanese internment camps was because one of the investigators that has a show on my network, he lives in Utah, and he's actually been to some of those camps.
Really?
Yes, and it's fascinating. I'm going to have to hook you two up to talk.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to talk to him.
Myself, I love any kind of history, but especially music history. That's like my thing. Yeah.
I don't know much about music history. What's like your favorite music history fun fact?
Ooh, fun fact. Gosh, put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could think of like 100 things at one time, and then nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, anything like the Beatles, the Who, Led Zeppelin, the classic stuff, like Led Zeppelin, before they became Led Zeppelin, they were actually the Yardbirds. So,
what?
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, Jimmy Page was a session musician, and he joined the Yardbirds, and as the Yardbirds were kind of breaking up, he retained the rights to the name and actually asked, let me see, it was John Entwistle and Keith Moon of The Who to join the band, and they were kind of like in between doing the Who stuff and then wanting to do that, and they were like, this is not going to work. It's going to go over like a lead balloon. And Jimmy Page thought, lead balloon. So he changed the name to Led Zeppelin.
Whoa. That's so weird. I love that.
Just stuff like that. I actually won Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker tickets with goofy history like that.
I don't know that band.
You don't know Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers?
Okay, let me defend myself. I don't know most artists or bands by their name, nor do I know their songs by their name. I kind of just hear a song on the radio and I'll sing along to it, but have no idea who made it or what it's called.
Tom Petty had made an album back when I was in high school, and it was called Southern Accents. And the question was, what did Tom Petty do that nearly ended his career? And while he was recording that album, he didn't like the way things were going, so he got mad and he punched the wall. And when he punched the wall, he broke his hand, and he nearly damaged it to the point where he couldn't play anymore. So, and I won free tickets to a concert for that.
Because he broke his hand. No. Do you ever watch the show Drunk History?
You know what? I think I've seen that a few times.
It is one of my favorite shows. It's on Comedy Central. And like for people who are listening who don't know what it is, I highly recommend it. It is this guy will get drunk with, I don't want to say like minor celebrities because I think that's kind of demeaning, but like celebrities you don't know of too often. Like they have a lot of comedy writers on the show, and they'll get drunk with them. And then the person getting drunk will then tell a piece of history, just tell a story, a historical story while drunk. And then they will get like famous actors like Will Ferrell or Don Cheadle to act out the story exactly how the drunk person is saying it. It is actually kind of informative. I remember I was in a history class and I was the only one who knew about a certain incident because I had seen it in Drunk History. And two, very funny. It's very funny to watch.
Well,
Yeah.
you like comedy anyway, right?
Oh, I love comedy. Comedy is everything to me. I have consumed a very large amount of TV since I was since I was a baby, probably. Some might call it an addiction. I would probably agree with them. Uh, but
Research.
mhm. Sure, we can call it that. It's worse now with streaming because binge culture was already like a part of my life before streaming was a thing. So now that it's a thing, it's like just gotten 10 times worse. But I watch a lot of good TV that way, so I'm not really complaining. Um, yeah, no, I've always been a fan of like short form comedy. Like I say sitcoms, but sitcoms doesn't really cover it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just like short form comedy TV shows. I remember I would watch a lot of what my dad was watching when I was a kid. So I would see things like Seinfeld or Friends, and I was young, so all of the inappropriate humor would just go right over my head. I remember I remember I watched the season finale of Friends, not like when it aired, but my mom was watching a rerun of the season finale of Friends, and
Mm-hmm.
I had just snuck downstairs and was standing on the stairs. I was supposed to be in bed, and I watched like the season finale of Friends that way. That was the first episode of Friends I ever saw. um, and yeah, so I watched like those shows. I watched a bunch of 90s and 80s sitcoms that way, and then as I got older, I just started watching things that were more for my generation. Oh my gosh, everyone should watch The Good Place. Have you seen The Good Place, man?
Haven't seen The Good Place, no.
Oh my god. I have to tell you about this show.
Go for it.
Okay. So it's created by this guy, McHugh, who I think is probably one of the most influential names in comedy right now. In terms of comedy television, he was a writer on The Office. He created Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, two of my favorite shows. And then he also created The Good Place, which is a show that is only 4 seasons long by choice, which isn't something that happens in American television a lot. People don't really end things until they get canceled or until they get like one more season. But he decided, no, I see how the story is going to end. It's going to be 4 seasons. So I respect that. And I'm also furious because I want more.
Right.
But here's the setup. And I am not spoiling anything because this is like the first 5 minutes of the first episode. The setup is we have this woman named Eleanor, played by Kristen Bell, fabulous actress. And she wakes up in a room and she is taken into an office by this guy who is played by Ted Danson. We love Ted Danson as well. Who tells her that she is dead, essentially. She has died on Earth, and now she is in the next chapter of her life. Now, it's not heaven or hell. It's not a religious afterlife or anything like that. In fact, they make a joke that every religion got about like 10% correct. Like they all got like a little bit correct. It's more of a moral afterlife. If you do good things, you get into the good place. If you do a certain amount of good things, or you get a certain amount of points, you get into the good place. If you don't, you get into the bad place. But it's okay because she is in the good place. And the good place is amazing. They have frozen yogurt in every flavor. You're going to feel happy all the time. You have a house that's perfectly designed for you, and you have a soulmate. So she meets her soulmate, this guy Chidi, played by the fabulous actor William Jackson Harper, who I might have a bit of a crush on, but you know, another time. And they meet each other, and apparently she got into the good place because she was this lawyer who got innocent people off death row, and she's this amazing person who did all these incredible things. And then she asked her soulmate, she's like, so you'll stand by me no matter what I tell you, right? And he goes, yeah, of course. And she goes, so here's the thing, I wasn't a lawyer, those aren't my memories, I was kind of a trash bag on Earth, I'm not supposed to be here. And it is perhaps the dumbest, smartest show I have ever come across in my life. I mean, it's dumb in the fact that they make sometimes really stupid jokes that work so well, but the plot, I don't even want to tell you any more about the plot because it is so good and surprising, and every episode somehow leaves you on a cliffhanger, which is really hard to do when you only have like a 22-minute episode. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. Like,
I'm gonna check it out.
It's the best show I have ever seen. Next to Fleabag. It is the best show I have ever seen. I love it so much. People just need to know about this show.
See, I love The Office and I love Parks and Recreation. So yeah, those are some really awesome shows. If it's anything like that, then yeah, I'd probably enjoy it.
It's got the exact same type of humor where it's kind of like bizarre out there, but the characters are super grounded and you care about them a lot. But it's got a plot that is so different from something I have seen before and so freaking clever. Like, I can't tell you about it. That's the thing. I really can't tell you about it.
I promise I will watch it.
I don't want to ruin it because oh gosh, if it had been ruined for me, I would have been just pissed.
I have something I have to show you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I have to show you my award that I got.
Wait, I can't read it. Okay, so it's a business. Oh, wait, is that from The Office?
I got a Dundee.
You got a Dundee.
Yes.
At first, I thought there was like some kind of words, and I'm like, what am I supposed to look at?
I got the You the Devil award.
Awesome.
But I got my own Dundee. Yes.
Okay. Which do you prefer, The Office or Parks and Rec?
Oh, I have to say The Office.
Really?
Yes.
I think I'm the opposite. I think I'm more Parks and Rec.
Don't get me wrong. I love Parks and Rec.
Same. I love The Office.
I mean, I'm on my 5th go around of watching The Office, and I just finished like my 3rd or 4th go around of Parks and Recreation, and I'll turn around and I'll start it all over again. So yeah.
Same, dude. Oh God, that show made me so happy. I think I like Parks and Rec a little bit better because I think The Office has a bit more cringe comedy, while Parks and Rec has a bit more outlandish comedy. And I definitely like vibe more with the outlandish comedy than the cringe comedy. Cringe comedy, sometimes it goes a bit too far and I'm like, oh, now I'm not laughing. I'm just embarrassed.
You know, that stupid humor, there's something about it, you know?
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I remember I got into The Office super late. I didn't watch it until it was like all on Netflix and everything. And my family got Netflix pretty late in the game as well. I remember I knew all of this stuff about it. Like, I knew about Steve Carell's character. I had seen like a bunch of clips of Dwight's character, which kind of convinced me to start watching it. I knew about Jim and Pam, and I remember I was thinking the whole time, like, okay, I know Jim and Pam are like this big thing, but I don't think I'm gonna be like super invested in it. And then like maybe 5 episodes in, I'm like, oh, okay, so they need to be together forever. I am incredibly invested in this relationship. Why are they not together yet? I know they do get together, but why?
Have you seen the UK version of it?
I haven't, actually.
I think
that's not true. That's not true. I've seen 2 episodes of it. I've never seen the whole thing.
I haven't finished it. I started it, but then I got back into my other shows. So, you know, there's a show, and I think it's called The Upload or something like that. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I love that.
Is it called Upload? The one on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that one. That one I enjoyed. My favorite show on Amazon Prime is probably Fleabag, though. Have you seen Fleabag?
I haven't seen Fleabag, no.
Ooh, that's a good show. That's a quick watch, too. It's only like 10 episodes, and it's 2 seasons and 10 episodes total. And the first episode of season 2, I think is probably one of the best written episodes on television.
Really?
Like, legit, ridiculously funny, really smart writing, and very good editing too. I don't notice editing in TV shows too often, but in that show, like, really well done. But also like has a moment in there where you just stop breathing and you're like, oh my God, Oh my God, I'm feeling so much right now. I might cry. I might have a panic attack. I don't know what's going on. And that's so hard to do because that's a really short episodes as well. It's only like 22 minutes for their episodes. And it's such a short show. It had like a really satisfying conclusion, which is hard in TV shows. I know it's hard to get, especially when you go on for a long time and you have a lot building up. But so I really respect good endings. The Good Place has a good ending as well. Yeah, no, that show is great. I have bawled my eyes out from both crying and laughing on that show.
You know, I find it funny that since I started doing editing myself, that now when I'm watching something, I pay attention to the editing on it. Like, ooh, that was done really well. Ooh, I need to remember to do that. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh, that's so real. I pay attention to it when I'm listening to podcasts now because all my editing is audio. So I'll pay attention where I'm like, oh, okay, I like how they made that transition there. Oh, I bet there was a bunch of cuts and I'm not really hearing their cuts here. That's really good. I really like how subtle this is, or I like the effect they added here. Because I'm still so new to the editing world and I'm still trying to like, I really like jumped in with both feet. I started doing this podcast without any knowledge of editing whatsoever. But my co-host, he has a lot on his plate right now. He has a web series that he is working on. So I'm kind of like, okay, I should take some of the burden off him right now. So I can be the editor for the podcast. I have GarageBand. I can do this. So I've really been teaching myself on the fly, and I'm like, oh, so that's what you do with the sound there. It's yeah.
It drives me crazy because I'll get on like YouTube and stuff like that, and I'll see these different shows that like are they have thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers, and you can see, you know, the editing cuts where it kind of skips a little bit. I'm like, how is this so popular and I'm not, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's a mood.
It's driving me crazy. I mean, granted, we're picking up steam, yes, but still, I'm like, how do these guys have this popular a show and the editing is so bad?
I don't know, man.
Okay, so comedy movies. What is your favorite comedy movie?
My favorite comedy movie. Okay, so I'm not sure it's my favorite, but the one that comes to mind is The Long Dumb Road, which was an indie film. It was at Sundance, so a lot of people don't know about it, but it stars my favorite comedy actor, Jason Mantzoukas. If you know Parks and Rec, he's the perfume guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis Feinstein. I think that man is one of the funniest actors on TV right now. He's also in The Good Place, plays one of my favorite characters in that. He's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, also plays one of my favorite characters in that. That guy plays crazy on a level that I really aspire to. But it's this movie about this kid who is going to college, and he decides that he's going to drive across country, and on the way he picks up this drifter played by Jason Mantzoukas, and it's just this really funny road trip movie that I just laughed so hard watching. And you know, it's a road trip movie, so obviously getting from point A to point B isn't going to be as easy as just a drive across the country. There are going to be roadblocks in it, and I don't want to tell you what they are because I don't want to spoil it, but no, it's a very funny movie. I mean, another one that I was thinking of, there's a movie called Kings of Summer that I was a really big fan of as a kid, which is, again, another indie movie about this group of kids who decide that they hate their parents, so they build a house in the middle of the woods, and then they actually move into this house and live out there. And I don't know, it's just so funny. There's this really absurd character on it played by an actor who I think's name is Moises Arias, who has these just really deadpan hilarious lines that me and this one other guy in my high school watched this movie and we would just say to each other all the time because they were so funny. I mean, there's probably others, but those are the two that are popping into my head right now. It's not it's honestly not like oh, Jojo Rabbit. That's another one.
I love that movie.
Jojo Rabbit's amazing.
It was so well done, and I
It
think
was so well done.
what's his name? Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi.
He plays Hitler.
Hitler. Yeah.
I'm like, this is like not even a white dude, and he's playing Hitler.
No, he's Jewish.
I thought he was Maori or something like that.
I think, well, he's Jewish as a religion, but he's from
I thought he was
Norway?
from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah.
So, because it was my understanding he was a Maori, but maybe
I
I'm
don't know.
wrong.
I think in an interview he said he was Jewish. I could be wrong. He could have been making a joke there.
He definitely isn't a Hitler.
No.
But brilliant movie.
That movie's so funny, and then it just gets so dark all of a sudden, but it's so effective. Oh, I loved that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait till my podcast talks about that movie, except I have to be negative, so that'll suck.
Oh, okay.
That's the one, like, there have been some movies that we've watched where I'm like, thank God I am the negative one, because I don't have positive things to say about this movie. But there have been others, like we did Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of my favorite animated movies.
Love
where
it.
I was like, okay, well, what was wrong with this? It's winter. Why aren't they wearing jackets?
True.
That's a problem, people.
I was actually dressed up as Spider Noir at a Comic-Con.
Oh, gosh. Oh, do you do cons?
Yes.
My sibling, Hollis, does a lot of cons. They're a really talented cosplayer.
It's my wall back here. I don't know, it's probably hard to see, but that corner over there is just about everybody from the Justice League movie, except for Ben Affleck. He was the only one that wasn't there, which I know a lot of people didn't like that movie, but I thought it was awesome.
I wasn't a big fan. I do think DC is getting better at movies, though. They had a slow start, but they've kind of started getting better. Like, I liked Wonder Woman, I liked Shazam, I liked Birds of Prey. So, like,
Damn.
Yeah, I saw that with Zachary Levi.
He lives 20 minutes from here.
Does he really?
Zachary Levi, yes.
He's a good actor. I think he's very funny.
He is.
I mean, don't get me wrong, which is weird. I think comic-wise, I do prefer DC Comics, but, like, movie-wise, I definitely prefer Marvel. Like,
Marvel.
I'm so invested in Marvel.
Marvel, let's say, quote unquote, live action movies are better, but DC animated movies are much better.
I will agree with you there. Did you watch like they just came out with a bunch of DC animated movie universe movies? Like, they had, like, Son of Batman, they had the Judas Contract in it, they had Teen Titans versus Justice League in it. I loved those movies, and they just ended it. Oh, what was the last one called?
It was Justice League Apocalypse.
Yes, I just watched that one, and I'm like, wow, that is a way to end those movies.
Well, I think the fact that that Zack Snyder's his cut is coming out on HBO, which I may just get HBO just for that. Hey, I'm not a big HBO person, but
you didn't watch Game of Thrones?
I've never seen one episode of Game of Thrones.
Don't listen to what people are saying. Like, I think it's a good watch. Like, a lot of people are really angry with the way it ended, which I understand. I think I came at it from a different perspective because I wasn't watching it from the beginning. I started watching it after season 6 had already come out, and I watched, like, seasons 1 through 6 in a month, and then I watched the last 2 seasons. So I think I had more space from the people who had been invested in it for, like, 10 years.
Right.
I think the ending is a little quick, but it makes sense for the characters. So, like, I think people are really upset with it, which I understand. But I still think it's worth a watch. I still think it's a good story.
Now, we did get that HBO free when the COVID thing first hit, and we watched Watchmen. I thought was really good.
Watchmen's great.
That TV series was awesome. I mean, I loved the movie, but the TV series I thought
I never saw the movie.
You've never seen the movie. Oh my God, you got to see the movie.
No,
You have to see the
only
movie.
seen the show. Show's really good.
Get the movie. Get the movie. Get the
I watch
movie.
movies. I watch so many movies for my podcast, dude.
So when you talk about shows and movies, I mean, is there been a movie that has just been so glorified? Oh, the heavens open up when people talk about it, and you're like, that movie sucked.
There are two. The first one, which is a controversial statement, is Annie Hall, which is lauded as one of the funniest movies to ever come out. And I watched it and I thought, this is not a funny movie. Like the thing is, it's so weird because I could understand how on paper it would be a funny movie. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, that cut makes sense why it would be funny. That moment makes sense why it would be funny. It all makes like comedy sense, but it did not make me laugh. Like I think there was something about Woody Allen and his delivery where I'm like, I don't think this guy is acting. I think this guy is just doing a stand-up set. But that's not what a movie like this is supposed to be. You're supposed to be acting as this character, even though this character is so closely based on you, which should make it easier.
You think? Hey, I'll
but
be honest with you. I have never liked any Woody Allen movies. I
it's
just
the only
haven't.
one I've seen.
I don't like it. I don't like him. I don't like his movies. I don't get the appeal. I'm sorry, but that's just me.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. And then we just watched one. I just recorded this episode a few days ago. It was 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is this movie that is lauded for its technological achievement and its influence on the science fiction genre in film. And it's influenced on so many films to come, which all very fair and valid points, which I will not argue. But oh my God. I was watching that movie. That is a 2.5-hour movie, and 88 minutes of it has no talking. The first 25 minutes of that movie are nonsensical. They don't matter for the rest of the story. I was losing my mind. And like ADHD, it's hard to keep my attention. And I had to pay attention because it was for my podcast. And I was just like, this is the worst experience of my life. Like I started crying because I noticed that there were 35 minutes left in the movie. And the sheer frustration of that made me cry.
I mean, that was a big deal when I was a kid, though. It was kind of innovative when I was a kid. So
yeah, and it has a lot of like technological achievements, which I'm not like knocking. Yes, that's the same thing, but I have the same feeling about the movie Gravity. If you don't have a good story, or in 2001: Space Odyssey's case, like a coherent story, then what's the point of making a technologically achieved, like making this movie with all these technological achievements? If you want to just show technological achievements, do that in like a museum, or do that at like a showcase, do that in a short film even. But if you're going to spend all this money to make this giant film, I think you got to prioritize the story.
True. I will give you that.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like the visual effects, that was a big deal when I was a kid. I mean, I was 7 when Star Wars came out first time. So
I love Star Wars.
I love Star Wars, and that will always be one of my favorite movies. But I love to go back and point out all the mistakes. So
oh, sure. Like that's a big thing about my podcast. Like these movies we don't do a movie unless it has won an Academy Award. And whether or not they deserve to win those Academy Awards, people have recognized this movie as excellent. That doesn't mean it doesn't have flaws.
Oh yeah.
And like, I think that's something that I really like about my podcast, that we point out, okay, yes, this and this is great about this movie, and it can be great, and we can celebrate it for this, but don't put it on a pedestal and think it above everything else. Like, don't put it above maybe this indie movie that is also really good at this, and this, but didn't win an Academy Award. Like, movies should be for everyone. There shouldn't be this prestige around them. And I mean, I have my own opinions about the legitimacy of the Academy and like the fact that you can legally bribe them and stuff, and that's okay, and that's just a practice, and I don't think an award show can be considered legitimate that way, but you know, that's another thing we can get into.
You know, 3 quick things that just came on top of my head about Star Wars.
Yes.
The cantina. When you're in the cantina, one of the mistakes that you'll find is you know, the big headed aliens, and they're sitting around drinking, and you'll see one of them has these big old long fingers, and then his counterpart there has like human hands. So if you pay attention to that part, and then there at the bar, there's a like this mouse looking thing or bat, whatever the hell it is, and it's going to drink, and when it goes to drink, it actually puts the cup on its chin. So you got to really pay attention. Right?
Yeah, that's funny. Keep going.
And the other one, I mean, I could sit here and I could think up 100 of them, but the other one is when they blow up the Death Star and they come into the base and they're jumping out, and you know, Leia comes around the corner and is like, Luke, and he goes, Carrie.
Yeah. I know about that one.
The editor is like, oh, what the hell? Just
whoops. Oh gosh. Do you ever watch so you know on YouTube there's this thing called Cinema Sins where they go through like everything wrong with this movie?
No,
you ever
I
heard
haven't
of that?
seen that.
Okay, it's this one guy. It's for comedy, of course. Well, he'll go through a bunch of movies and he'll point out like everything wrong with this, and he'll point out like those little nitpicky things. He'll point out like story plots, but it's all for comedy. He'll also be like really so nitpicky to a point where you can't take him too seriously. But someone in response to that did a story started a channel called Cinema Wins, which points out everything great about a movie. And both of them did Star Wars. So I remember I watched like all of the Star Wars movies back to back from each of them. And it was such a weird experience because I had someone point out all of these flaws to me about like the writing of Star Wars, about the planning of Star Wars, about like these little tiny nitpicky mistakes of Star Wars, about these bigger mistakes of Star Wars that maybe more people should pick up on. And then I had someone who also like acknowledged those mistakes and were like, yeah, it's this, and this, but also like this kind of makes it good, or this kind of makes it that, or cut it a break because of that. And I'm like, you know, this is like a really nice balance here.
Right. No. Yeah, Star Wars would be like one of my top movies, even if it has the mistakes. Because I mean, you look at the special effects that came out of that movie, it's ridiculous.
And great storytelling as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think George Lucas could have probably spent more time with a thesaurus, but you know.
Of course, yeah. I don't think George Lucas ever acknowledged that like dialogue was his strongest suit in terms of storytelling. Which I get, but I also think like, you know, it's a fun space opera.
Oh yeah. I mean, how many times can you use delusions of grandeur in the same movie series, you know?
And like even still, there's been a lot of controversy about the new ones that came out, which I totally see the points coming from all sides. I remember there's like this really big divide between people who love The Rise of Skywalker and hate The Last Jedi, or hate The Last Jedi and love The Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like in this weird in between where I'm like I like them both. Like,
you know, I was happy with them.
Yeah, not because I don't see there are problems. Like there are things in each movie where I'm like, I'm not a big fan of that, but I don't know. I feel like they're still just essentially Star Wars. Like to their core, they're just a fun space opera Star Wars movie with characters you care about and really cool, fun action sequences and fun world building. And that's all you can really want from a Star Wars movie.
Well, I guess the only thing that kind of threw me off with those movies was it didn't stick to the canon of the books and things like that. Because if you read the books, then you're kind of like, this is not what happened. But I mean, still, people should just, I mean, it's a fantasy movie. Come on, just go enjoy it for what it is.
Just have fun.
I mean, yeah, of course, I would have loved to seen the storylines that came out of the books, but at the
Mm.
same time, I mean, I thought it was a good new set of stories. I didn't really
Yeah.
care for the Phantom Menace. I thought that was ridiculous, and you know, I thought Jar Jar was like, who the hell was drinking that heavily that they came up with this character?
Do you ever hear the theory that Jar Jar was supposed to be like this really huge villain, and it was all supposed to be like this really big twist, but after George Lucas got all the response about how much people hated him in the first movie, he kind of changed the role?
I did not hear that, but
I I I really hope that's not the case, because how weird of a twist would that have been if Jar Jar was actually like secretly this giant villain? I don't remember which villain they said exactly, but the entire time. And he had was like super powerful. He had manipulated all of them. He had tricked his way into this like bumbling buffoon we all don't care about, and like, oh my gosh. I think that would have been cool, personally.
when Return of the Jedi came out, they had the Ewoks, and I know
Yeah.
everybody loves the Ewoks. Okay, I personally I did not like the Ewoks. I mean, okay, it was cute,
I
yada
thought they were
yada,
fine.
but the original story that George Lucas had wrote, it was supposed to take place on Kashyyyk, and it was all supposed to be Wookiees, but they wanted to go with
Mm,
family friendly. Let's make them little teddy bears, and I'm like,
sure.
whatever, okay. But I love the movie anyway. Just not an Ewok
Yeah.
fan.
I love all the movies. Like even the prequels, like there's a downside to the prequels. They're definitely not my favorite of the huge saga. I guess it's 9 movies now if we're not counting a couple of the spin-off ones.
Right.
Which I did see, and I enjoyed. But yeah, I don't know. I just think there's merit to all of them, and I think it's fun to watch, and it's fun to even kind of make fun of them sometimes as
True.
well.
Well,
It's Star Wars. It's a fun space opera.
but Empire
Operas
will
are a
always be my
little
favorite.
Empire.
Yes,
I love
Empire will
Empire.
always be my favorite.
I love Empire. That is probably one of my favorites as well. That's a
So
real fun movie.
did you see the X-Men movies, the one where they like
No.
went back to the first class or whatever?
Oh, oh, are you talking about Days of Future Past?
Yeah, they did Days of Future
Or no?
Past and First
I've
Class and what was it? X-Men. Was it X-Men Apocalypse? Yeah, I think
Okay,
that's what it's called.
I've
All those.
seen I have seen like the 3 most recent X-Men movies. Well, 4 if you include Logan, which is a great movie.
I thought it was a
Um
good movie.
uh I've seen like the 4 most recent ones. I never saw any of the older ones, but I think I saw the 4 most recent ones because my best friend since I was 6 is obsessed with the X-Men movies, and she has seen all of them, and she dragged me along to the theater for um like the last 3. So I saw Days of Future Past, and I saw the 2 new ones. So I saw the Dark Phoenix one, and the
Age
one
of
that
Apocalypse.
was it Age of Apocalypse?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I liked Age of Apocalypse. I wasn't a big fan of Dark Phoenix, if I'm
Dark
being honest.
Phoenix. I didn't like it either. I thought the movie sucked.
I just thought the story was kind of a mess. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not really following it here, and it's a shame because these actors I think are doing a really good job, but I feel like you're kind of all over the place, and I'm not really getting the story, and I haven't read the X-Men comics, so I don't have a background for what's going on here. You kind of need to give me some more.
If you got a few days, I can talk to you about them. But I thought,
No, I'm more DC. I'm more DC comics.
I thought that the fact, and this is the reason why I brought it up when Age of
Mm-hmm.
Apocalypse, they had a scene where the kids were walking out of the theater and they had just seen Return of the Jedi, and they're talking about, they're like, yeah, the third movies always suck, and that was the third movie of the newer X-Men. But
Oh man.
as far as Marvel goes, my favorite would have to be Doctor Strange.
Really?
Yes, Doctor Strange has been my favorite.
Explain.
I think because number one, Doctor Strange was one of those characters that wasn't like, like a mainstream character when I was a
Sure.
kid, but it was still one of those characters that I was, fascinated with. And then when they came out with the movie, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch did such a good job portraying the part.
He's a very
And
talented actor.
yeah, that whole psychedelic kind of feel to it. And, here's somebody redeeming himself for being a jerk, and now he's going to help save the world. I thought it was a good story. It was good, kept my attention all the way through. But
Yeah, same.
I think Deadpool would definitely have to be a favorite.
Deadpool's great. Oh, Ryan Reynolds was really born for that part.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I
and
love that.
he pushed for it very hard
Yeah.
because that whole Wolverine movie that he did, he was playing Deadpool in that. I mean, that movie sucked. I'm
Never
sorry, it
saw
sucked.
it.
Yeah, don't waste your time. It sucked.
Oh,
But favorite superhero movie, I'm still gonna go with the Dark Knight.
really?
Yes.
Okay, I got a funny story about The Dark Knight. So, Christopher Nolan is my co-host Andrew on my podcast. It's his favorite director. Like,
Okay.
hands down, all-time favorite director. And I remember we were talking about Dark Knight recently, and he was mentioning all these points, and I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. Oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And he's like, did you not see this movie? And I'm like, no, I did. But here's the thing about me. I am what people would refer to as a coward. And I saw that movie when I was maybe 12.
Oh
I
my
saw
Lord.
it with my friends in a theater, and so many times while watching that movie, I got so freaked out, I would run out of the theater and hide in the bathroom. I think I did that maybe 6 or 7 times throughout the movie. So I missed so much of that movie, and I still have not seen it since then.
You know what? You were 12 when that came out. I am an old fart.
I don't know if I was 12 when I was like 12 or 13. I was in middle school.
Yeah,
for
I'm an
sure.
old fart. I am definitely an old fart. I had already went through my first divorce when I saw that movie.
Well, I had to wait until 15 to get there.
You know what really I loved about that movie was, first of all, when I heard that Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker, the first thing in my head was, really? Heath Ledger is going to play the Joker? You got to be kidding me. And then I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. I sat down, I watched the movie, and his performance was unlike anything I've ever seen before. And mind you, I used to watch the old Batman show that came on TV where Cesar Romero was the Joker,
Did you watch
and
the animated show as well?
I watched the
With Mark
animated
Hamill as the Joker?
Yes.
It
And
was great.
Mark Hamill I thought he did a wonderful job as a voice actor,
Mark
doing that.
Hamill's Mark Hamill is in one of my favorite shows, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender as the Fire Lord. And I love that show to my core. It is technically a kid's show, but I have rewatched it several times as an adult, and it holds up so well.
Wow, my kids loved the Avatar movies
The
or TV shows, I mean.
Oh, okay. I'm like the movie.
The TV.
Like, what
Well,
nonsense are you saying?
No, I did see the movie though. I took my kids to go see the Last Airbender
Oh,
movie.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Garbage.
There we are.
Oh, are
I
we
don't know.
back?
I didn't think it was that bad a movie, but I didn't know the cartoon, so.
Because you haven't, dude, you haven't seen the TV show. The TV
I'm
show is
sorry.
one of the most well thought out stories I have ever come across in my life. And I'm not joking. Like, when people didn't like the finale of Game of Thrones, they turned to that show as an example of better storytelling. Like, watch it. Like, honest to God, just watch it, check it out. It is for everyone. I am not joking. It's not just for kids. It's for everyone can get into this show. It has fantastic storytelling. The comedy is a little like childish, but it still is funny. It's just smart writing. The world building is amazing, and you can just see the animation get better as it progresses. The season finale has like some fantastic animation in it, and just the way it's just so cool and awesome. And the movie ruins all of it.
See, I guess because I didn't know the TV show, but I didn't think the movie was that bad.
It's like M. Night Shyamalan had someone write a synopsis of the first season for what happened, and then decided, I'm going to change all of this. Never watched an episode. That's what it's like.
I have seen so many movies like that where they've taken something that was adapted from television or even an older movie, and it is like nothing, absolutely nothing to do with it. And they ruin it.
Here's my thing about adaptations. I think if you're going to adapt something to a movie or adapt something to a TV show or adapt it into any medium, you need to have a reason why you think it should be adapted into this medium. So like another like terrible adaptation. I was a huge fan growing up of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian books. I still am. That's some good writing by Rick Riordan. Like they were my favorite books as a kid. I remember like in the first 3 pages, I found out that this kid who's the main character had ADHD, and that made him a superhero. And I'm like, oh yes, that is perfect. Thank God I have ADHD. I'm a superhero. And the movie is garbage. The movie like messes with so much of the plot, and it doesn't make sense why it would mess with it too. Like it changes so much about the first book, and you're just like, why are you doing this? This isn't making it better. This isn't making it a more coherent storyline. You aged up all the characters, which completely takes away the innocence of it. There's a reason why they didn't do that for Harry Potter. It doesn't work when the characters are older. And then in the second movie which I did watch, they tried to like correct it a little bit, which I respected, but it was kind of too late. And then it was just all awful. But then I saw a few years, like probably 10 years later, they adapted the book into a musical. And I thought, this isn't going to work. But then I listened to the album and I'm like, this works. Like these songs in this musical are really getting to what the essence of the book was and why we cared about it so much. And it's putting them in a song form, which kind of just elevates the emotions of it. And me and my sibling Hollis, we actually went to go see the musical when it toured to Chicago. And we're like, this is fantastic. This is really good. It's so true to the book. And it just takes it to a different level that you feel in your soul, but you weren't thinking about. And like, I don't know. I just think so many people want to adapt things just because they think it'll make them money. But I think there needs to be a purpose to it. I think you really need to think this is going to be better in this medium because of A, B, and C, and not just because it's going to make me money.
That's the problem. A lot of people make movies and they're just like, oh, this is going to make me money just because I've got this character in it or whatever. Okay, people are probably going to hate me for this, but have you seen the Captain Marvel movie with Brie Larson?
Yeah.
Okay, I watched it because it was part of the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the movie sucked. I didn't like it.
I don't have a background with Captain Marvel, so I was honestly fine with it. I'm like, it's not as good as some of the others, but I don't know. This is fun.
I mean, it started out okay, but it just, the movie sucked, and I just don't think Brie Larson's that great of an actress.
Oh, I disagree. Have you seen her in other things? Like The Room or Trainwreck?
I've seen a movie with her, and I'm just not that impressed with her. I'm sorry. Probably not a popular opinion, but I just don't. I mean, she's cute and all. I just don't think she's that great an actress.
I disagree, but that's my opinion. I don't know. I've seen her in different characters. I do agree that maybe Captain Marvel isn't the best character for her, but I'm not sure if that's so much her fault or if it's the writing's fault. Because the writing, I felt, kind of wrote her kind of flat, and it's hard to have a movie surrounded by a flat character.
Yeah. Well, they basically left her out of the Avengers movies. I mean, she was there, but she really wasn't,
Yeah, but like That's because they didn't think to add her until we were already in Infinity War.
Well, I think her character is unnecessary. They're making Captain Marvel 2, and I hear it's going to be almost a mini Avengers movie. So
Really?
that's the
I
only
don't
thing.
know much about it.
It's the only thing that's going to pique anybody's interest is because a lot of people have they kind of feel like I do. She's kind of
Yeah.
pointless, and to keep the
Yeah.
interest going,
I
they're
know a
going
lot of people don't like it.
I mean, they're going to add all these different characters. They're going to have a Rogue from X-Men is going to show up because now they're part of the Marvel
Really?
Cinematic Universe. And oh yeah,
Did they buy them?
well, it was originally
I
a
didn't know that.
Marvel. Well, let me tell you this real quick, and
Yeah.
we'll get off of. But Marvel was going into bankruptcy. They had gotten into just putting out way too many books and things like that. Like they would come out with one cover and then they'd have the same comic book but with different covers, and just saturating the market with all these books, and they hadn't really made any good Marvel movies up to that point, and so they were going bankrupt. In order to keep hold of things, then they sold to like Sony and these different
Mm-hmm.
movie studios to make movies. And so I think it was Sony had taken over the X-Men. And I mean, them like you, the people that were in the movies did such a great job at playing the characters, but the storylines to me just fell short in every one of them,
It's
every
hard.
one of them. And it sucks because Hugh Jackman was Wolverine.
Fuck yeah. Sorry, I swore.
That's okay.
You could take that out. I've been trying to be good.
I'll bleep it. But I mean, the other characters, they did really, really good. It's just the storylines were just not there. And now in the Marvel folks have gotten the rights back to their characters like Fantastic Four and X-Men and all that. And yes, I did not like any of the Fantastic Four movies. They all sucked.
I wasn't a fan of the Fantastic Four movies either, to be perfectly honest.
I can't wait. I hear John Krasinski is being wooed to play Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, that is good casting.
I love it. And if they could
would
just talk
love
Emily Blunt into playing, an Invisible Girl, that would be freaking awesome.
Oh my God.
Oh, we froze.
Jack Ryan. Oh, are we back?
Yeah, we're back. That's okay.
Have you seen John Krasinski and Jack Ryan?
Yes.
His new show. He's so
it.
good. Oh gosh. Like that dude can do comedy, like back of his hand, fantastic, but also I've loved seeing him in this really different role where he's just in these high stakes all the time and he's handling it so well. And I'm like, yes, this guy's an actor.
And he's jacked up now,
He's jacked. Man, like if I ever, part of the reason I really want, because I'm an actor too. I'm still like really beginning stages of being an actor. But the goal is I would eventually like to be in a superhero movie, because if only because they would put me through a workout routine where I would become jacked. And that is something I don't think I'll be able to do on my own.
You believe Natalie Portman's supposed to get jacked up to play in the next Thor movie?
For Thor Love and Thunder.
Yes.
That's going to be
She said that's the only reason why she's glad the pandemic happened when it did, so she can have more time to get work, jacked
and I mean,
up
we've seen like Kumail Nanjiani with his transformation for the Inhumans movie, which I am really looking forward to because I know so little about that movie. And the last time that happened, they gave us Guardians of the Galaxy, which is my favorite Marvel movie.
Oh,
so
that would be number 2 on my list.
I honestly, that is the one movie where I think the sequel was actually better than the first. And I loved the first. So I was so impressed by how they did that. Not because like I thought I just thought the storytelling, because they had done all this work before with making the characters grow, the storytelling was just elevated on another level. And I thought, oh, this is so good.
And it had Kurt Russell.
And it had Kurt Russell. And it had the new actress, Palm. Oh, I'm forgetting her last name, and I feel so bad, but she plays Mantis, and she is
so
funny.
She's played that character very well.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Oh my God, I could sit here and I could talk about movies and television all night long, but unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our show. So before we go, please tell everybody how they can follow you, they can find you, all that good stuff, and promise me that we can do this again.
Absolutely, man. This has been so much fun. And same, I can talk about movies forever. It's good that you're cutting me off because I would have kept going. Yeah, you can find me. I have an Instagram at Brittney Blue Eyed. I don't have a Twitter because I don't understand it. However, you can also find my podcast. My podcast is called The Academy Arguments. You can find it on I almost said iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, and basically anywhere you get your podcast. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Academy Arguments, or on Twitter at Acad Arguments. It's a really fun movie. Our tagline is, we have the ugliest fights about the prettiest movies. Really fun movie, really fun podcast. Me and my co-host, we have a guest on every week, and we just talk about movies that have won Academy Awards, and it's a fun conversation, and I really think you guys should check it out because I really enjoy it.
Hey, if anything else, it's because you just gave that recommendation.
Thank you.
No, if you will do me a huge favor when we finish the show, if you will email me all the links to like your podcast and your social media and all that good stuff, I will put that in the descriptions. And
thank you.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today and just have a great conversation. And I can tell you're going to be a great actress because you acted like you really enjoyed being on this show.
I know, it was so difficult. I was like really trying not to just throw up to the side.
You did a good job.
No.
Give that girl the Academy Award.
So don't, because they don't mean anything. No, I thank you so much for having me on. This has been an absolute pleasure. I never get to be positive on my podcast anymore. So this has been great.
Well, awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And like I said, we've got to do this again.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get my other comedian friends to join us, though.
Yes, that'll be so much fun. I could just laugh the entire time. I love being surrounded by comedians because I'm always the least funniest person in the room, and they'll always just rub off on me just a little bit.
I would like to thank you again, and I want to thank everybody that watches us and listens to us and supports us, and we thank you. And till the next show.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network